Hello people of the internet, welcome to Paint to Life, episode 2 of From the Shelf. The series where we take a look at old Paint to Life episodes that you might have missed, as selected by you in the community tab of our channel. This was a fun episode to make as it was the first time I had my wife and daughter voice lines on Paint to Life. They voiced the Black Dragon Blackheart and the Wormling Little One respectively. It was tricky because I needed them to record their lines in Draconic, and I think it turned out pretty well. So, without further ado, here are Blackheart and Little One from the shelf. Now, black dragons have no natural enemies. They attack and kill almost anything unfortunate enough to stumble upon them. They have deep socketed eyes and broad nasal openings, which give them almost skull-like appearance, which also gives them their nickname Skull Dragons. As they age, the acidic breath that they use continually through their life eats away at the flesh around their face, leaving thin layers of hide where flesh once was, further enhancing that skull-like visage. They have segmented horns that curve forward and down, unique amongst all dragons of their chromatic type and all dragons in general. They also have forked tongues, and they almost continually drip an acidic slime and drool from their mouths. Upon hatching, a black dragon wormling scales are small, thin, and glossy. They almost have like a wet-like appearance all the time. And as they age, these scales kind of matte out a bit so that they have just a subtle dark look to them, which helps them camouflage in the swamps and bogs that they make their homes. They like to hunt for red meat, which they'll often take and they'll break into chunks and leave in the swamp for days to almost pickle or ferment, which gives their layers an evil, rotten meat flesh smell and attracts flies and other kinds of swamp creatures that black dragon usually assimilate into servicing them. When it comes to treasure, black dragons are awfully fond of coins, especially the gold variety. And while they can breathe underwater, they don't swim very often. They prefer more to wallow around in mud, using their black color as a camouflage and wait to ambush their prey. They're exceptional ambushers, especially when it is in a swampy or jungly or sometimes even foresty terrains. Now, if you find yourself fighting against a black dragon, know that, as I said, while all chromatic dragons are evil, black dragons are especially tyrannical and malicious, sadistic, psychopathic killers. They'll target the weakest enemies first in combat to bolster their self-confidence and potentially sow terror into the hearts of their opponents. Now, this actually gives you a bit of a double-edged sword in the advantage department. It's possible that the black dragon will take a prisoner alive, and you don't have very much time to get him back because the black dragon is probably preparing a fiendish torture device or something that would create great agony for their victim. And it will give you a bit of a window to rescue them, but you certainly don't want to tarry. Finally, the black dragon's breath weapon is a line of acid which can corrode even the strongest metals. It ejects it at a distance of anywhere from 30 to 90 feet, and it's 10 feet in width. And anything that hits starts to slowly digest outside of the dragon's stomach, and then they'll just come around and eat it. So those are black dragons in general, but who is our black dragon tonight that we're painting? Let's find out. Our story begins in the country of Cormyr, in the city of Battlerise, named for the local hill atop which stands Castle Battlegate. A caravan is preparing to depart to the city of Arabel, the capital city. 4 wagons full of silks from Sembia and turnips grown in Battlerise are preparing to make the journey. 12 soldiers accompany them, all flying the colors of House Margar, a white flag with a yellow cross on it. House Margar are the current occupants of Castle Battlegate. En route to Arabel, the men notice something on the side of the road. It appears to be a large creature about the size of a big dog, and they realize it for what it is. It's a small black dragon wormling. It appears wounded, and it starts to flee at the sight of them. So the men fire their crossbows at it. The caster amongst them narrowly misses it with a ray of fire, and they chase it off-road for about half a kilometer deeper into the swamp. It limps away, unable to fly, and finally lands foppishly into a puddle of water. The men approach, and they surround it to make the killing blow. when of course the water explodes and from it comes the great black beast. In 2 flybys, a flash of claw, tail, tooth, and acid, all 12 of the men are dead, and the battle is over. The mother dragon turns to her wormling and says,
Hark gukek tarura mox ear. Jahan kloiti ziak iwak vor ekik de teri batabo vorastrix ornla tepoa larita wux.
The little one looks back at her mother and replies,
Astahi tibahad 3 klel, sava misi gethris ekes itrasi kwa omna.
Here ti temet, wux regulin ekes ultrinian dau omenak.
Then Mother grabs the bodies of 4 soldiers, 2 in each set of claws, armor still sizzling from the acid, and drags them into the water and disappears, her glowing red eyes beneath the surface. Now about 3 weeks pass, and back in Battlerise, word reaches House Margar that their caravan did not arrive at Arabel. So they dispatch 24 soldiers to go find out the fate of the caravan. Battlerise is located just to the south of a great swamp known as the Vast Swamp. The Vast Swamp to the north had been quiet for years, but lizardmen have been known to gather and congregate, and perhaps they have a big enough group now that they are emboldened in making attacks on the road. Now about a 3-day ride from town, they find signs of where the caravan went off the road north into the swamp, and they decide to follow and do some investigating. About 4 or 5 kilometers in, they find a disgusting sight. Bodies bitten into pieces, floating in the swamp like a sick marinade. No sign of anyone left alive, and all the contents of the caravan scattered and destroyed. Suddenly, camouflage right by the edge of the water moved a young wormling. The men jumped back. For such a small creature, her ferocity was unmatched. She took to the air and swooped, biting at them, clawing at them, making some flybys, 1, 2, and the men were making a circle to try and protect themselves from her from the sky. As all their heads are cocked up, worrying about this tiny little wormling that's swooping in and out, nobody noticed Mother creeping out from the bog, this massive black dragon. And in one acidic breath, she struck 80% of them and dropped them to the ground.
Kiwi sia skiron.
Little one descended onto one of the survivors that was trying to crawl away and began to tear away the melting armor from his chest and tear the flesh and meat from his bones as he writhed in agony. She looked up at her mother for approval.
Das jaka wu gia maka vi via almanac.
Tir titor wux regluin ekes ultrinian dau omenak.
Now Mother, upon seeing the arms and armor and the standards that these men were carrying with the yellow cross on the white flag, she kind of came up with a plan, and she was very persuasive. She spent 3 days with 2 of the survivors, and you know what, I'm trying to keep the channel PG, so let's just say bad things happened. Yet a 3rd survivor, however, Arthur, he got to watch and enjoy the show, which, of course, I kid, he did not. But she was successful in convincing Arthur to happily go along with anything that she wanted him to do. So when Arthur returned to Battlerise, what a story he had to tell. I mean, they were right. They had been ambushed by lizard men, a whole bunch of them, and there were more, and they were planning an attack. And if they were going to do anything to protect Battlerise, House Margar had to act decisively and quickly. But while that was going on, Little One, frustrated at realizing that she was little more than a cog in her mother's machinations, well, she came up with a plan too. The scheming worm snuck away and erected a sign in the middle of the road written in common so that the approaching army would know of her mother's ambush attack plans. She figured the army could take care of her mother, and then Little One would inherit this territory. She'd make herself her own name. Maybe the Black Betrayer sounds good. So House Margar gathered an entire force together and marched into the west to end this threat against their little city and their people. Of course, when they saw the signpost on the road, they altered their plans accordingly. They would arrive with a little bit of a surprise of their own. The army, fully prepared, arrived at the spot in the bog. However, Mother did not jump out as planned. Mother did not jump out because Mother was not there. From under the surface water of the swamp, Little One was surprised to see troops surrounding her hiding place. Perhaps rangers had caught a glimpse of her location, so she dove down deeper in the water through her secret escape tunnel that she had, where she was surprised yet again to find that the tunnel had been collapsed from the other side, and that there was no escape. It was at that moment she felt the holding magic seizing her muscles, preventing her from moving. She was paralyzed. Then she felt the mystical energy force pulling at her, lifting her body out of the water. Unable to do anything, even open her mouth, she sat helpless as she was raised up, looking around to see all of the men staring at her. They surrounded her and chopped the little one into pieces. Mother did not intervene, because Mother was not there, nor did she have any intentions of being there. Discovering her daughter's treachery on the road was only a satisfying circumstance that allowed for some just desserts. No, Mother was flying around Castle Battlegate, dropping ropes of caustic death onto the few soldiers had been asked to stay behind to defend the castle while the army marched on her swamp. Then she would land, casually walk in, and collect tens of thousands of gold coins from the vault below the castle, take them, and fly back to a swamp to create a new lair. You see, Mother, whose real name is Blackheart, now sits, admiring her piles of gold, tenderly recounting the story of Little One to her new egg, which sits in a pit full of acid incubating like black dragon eggs do. The black dragon, Mother, and Wormling that are causing quite a muck on the Sword Coast. No, not Sword Coast. Tonight's story is about a black dragon named and the havoc that they wreak in the country of Cormyr. Wreak havoc? A black dragon named Blackheart and her wormling in the swamps of Cormyr. And there was a lot of bloopers